man, that's funny. Welcome to the State of Everything with Alex and Matthias.
It was a wonderful intro, Matthias. Can you extrapolate on what the show really is all about today and what you think about the state of everything?
Yeah, the state of everything is about learning, and today I learned that there are many podcasts called The State of Everything that exists on Spotify, but we are the only one that is not like those podcasts.
Well, see, I actually disagree. I've never seen anything called The State of Everything except ours.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what your sources are. Also, ours is technically called State of Everything with Alex and Matthias, so this is a very official title.
True.
So,
True. Yeah, I don't know. I think I was looking through it with my mom, she's going on the plane tomorrow, and she's going to listen to our second one. She's one of our biggest fans.
She's one of our biggest fans?
Yeah. Shout out to Mom. That's lame, but whatever.
Dude, that's amazing. Well, I was just thinking that, things are moving pretty quickly these days. I have this book here. It's called A Gradual Awakening by Stephen Levine. And I'm just going to read a little passage to begin this podcast show, if you don't mind, Matthias.
Go ahead, man. I like this idea.
When we start meditating, it becomes very clear that everything is changing moment to moment. When we sit for even 5 minutes trying to keep the attention on the breath, we often think, I can't keep my attention where I want it. It goes to this thought, and then to that thought, and then to this sensation, and then to that smell, then to some sound, and then we notice that one thing after another comes before the mind's eye. We see it's all a flow of constant change, coming and going, each moment leading to the next.
That's good.
So that's the power of some wisdom there from Stephen Levine, A Gradual Awakening. And I opened with that quote today on this lovely rainy Wednesday in the city of Angels, California, because, one of the topics I wanted to focus on today was change and how fast things are moving. And if we're supposed to move them faster, or we're supposed to, rein them in, what is the best tactic for change? There's a lot of different directions we can go on this. And change. The world's changing, man, but our government's still shut down. How about those apples?
Yeah, that's before I go on, I just want to say I want to give a shout out to all Americans. Again, hold the thought of your question. I'll return to it, but this goes out to all Americans around the world.
Huzzah.
Specifically, most of them who are in the United States of America, who are currently living through the worst president. We'll see about presidency, but the worst president in American history. We're a very inclusive podcast here, and it's a pretty historic thing. And so I would pour some out for all of us, but we are in a shutdown, like you said, Alex, and we can't be wasting beer in such a manner. We've got to tighten the belt. And try to, I don't know, I guess ponder things while we wait for our leaders to do something. But you're right. Change is a good topic to think about when it comes to that, because it is change, right? Like, what are we trying to change? What needs changing right now, Alex? I'm gonna pass this one back to you.
I'm just going to first introduce this beer for the day. It's a Belching Beaver Brewery peanut butter milk stout with natural flavor. Check out this beaver. That's me. And
You might need to describe that for our listeners who can't see it.
it's a silky smooth beer. It's a dark thing with cascading aromas of roasted peanuts, dark chocolate, and coffee. It's wonderful. Now, I'm not usually a stout guy. I mean, I am mostly on a rainy. It's a rainy kind of beer for a rainy kind of night. And I thought the peanut butter aspect was really nice and fun for the show, especially considering that it was a leftover from the Christmas holidays. And I still got a little bit of Christmas in me. How about you, Matthias?
Excuse me. I have a just a real unique and different beer that you're gonna just truly love, Alex. And I'm so glad that you asked that question. I'm so glad that you asked that question because today I just so happened, and they were almost out of the store, and we finally grabbed them. Just again here, a little something again. Just I like to be consistent, but we just have an 18 pack that because I just drink a lot of IPAs, so I just have the same ones. They're go-to.
Hi, bro.
And they're easy to say by those, I guess that's, but it's good. It delivers. Anywho, what's the change that we need? I mean, is that the beers that,
No, beer's fine. I mean, I think beer is an ever evolving subject, which is good for us, imbibers. So I've been looking into this, bear with me for a little bit because this is pretty radical. So for all you guys that are triggered by radical things, put your earmuffs on. It's this idea called accelerationism. And it's something that nobody really knows about because it was a fringe, pretty much a fringe thing in the 80s and 90s that has kind of evolved into something. Well, it hasn't evolved in anything. It's just the fact that the age we're living in right now is an accelerationist age. That's kind of what I'm going to prove. And basically, the idea of accelerationism is it posits that technology is moving way too fast. Things are moving way too quickly. There's too much radical change going on right now for us to actually keep up with it, the common man. And so accelerationism takes that further, and it says that capitalism, basically as it currently stands, isn't going to be able to sustain this change. And it's a really interesting thing. Basically, the idea is you just speed things up because that's the way it's naturally going to the point where a system collapses. And I don't know if that's what we necessarily want. We're not anarchists. And that's where the accelerationism argument it delves into this kind of just this race to, whatever, potentially a technological singularity. And so you just build up society again. And so it's, this is a philosophy that can be both left-leaning and right-leaning. The right-leaning aspect is basically close to authoritarianism in a sense, where it's we're going to force things to become, income inequality is going to be so great and so drastic that we're going to have to change something. On the left side, to me, this is the side that's there's more of an argument for, because it is this kind of positively socialistic thing, like Wikipedia. Basically, the world will be like Wikipedia in a sense, And I'm just going to read you a quote here. Nick Land, one of the quote-unquote fathers of accelerationism, said, in philosophical terms, the deep problem of acceleration is transcendental. It describes an absolute horizon and one that is closing in. Thinking takes time, and accelerationism suggests we're running out of time to think that through if we haven't already. No contemporary dilemma is being entertained realistically until it is also acknowledged that the opportunity for doing so is fast collapsing. So you can equate this with climatism, with climate change, environmentalism, with the technological realities that we're facing, with censorship, with big government, with big tech. There's a lot of really big questions that we're having a hard time grasping. What do we do with that? Do we try to slow these things down, or we just acknowledge that they're going to speed up naturally and then build anew? I don't know, man. It's an idea that came to me.
Yeah. Are you saying that like there are more problems than in, is it both the quantity, the quality, and the speed of them? Like, is it just like this, like all of them, it all kind of adds together to make it more of a challenge than what societies in the past have been able to overcome? I mean, it's you're saying that it's just changing in quality and just the nature of the like the problems themselves, like they're like existential things. And
Well, it's essentially a Marxist argument, honestly. I mean, Marx is kind of like a guy they look at as someone who kind of was a proponent of this ideology of like, look, capitalism isn't going to work, so we're going to have to figure something else out.
so it's specifically rooted in capitalism though, huh?
It is, yeah. And so it says there's another thing like accelerationism is basically like political heresy. The insistence that the only radical political response to capitalism is not to protest, disrupt, critique, or something it, but to accelerate and exacerbate its uprooting, alienating, decoding, abstractive tendencies. And this is from an article, it's a Guardian article by Andy Beckett called How a Fringe Philosophy Predicted the Future We Live In. I'll post a link. It's an incredibly interesting story about how basically this hyper technological world, this hyper capitalistic world, in a sense, in some ways, basically should just be sped up because that's the best way forward for humanity. More automation, merge the digital and the human, favor the deregulation of business, drastically scale back government because government is becoming more and more authoritarian, at least in some countries. And so essentially it goes against conservatism, traditional socialism, social democracy, environmentalism, protectionism, populism, nationalism, localism. It's the most radical political ideology because it basically just shits on everything.
Wait, so say that again, about, if you could just rewind before you said, just give me a rundown of what it has against, you said the liberal ideology or conservative ideology, like just see some more relevance with like within like like the current divide that is kind of holding, or that the United States is experienced, or whatever, our normal politics or conservatives.
Over it. It shoots over the current left-right minutia of what we argue about. We argue about Gillette ads. I mean, that's where we're at right now, based on like this left-right culture war divide. Accelerationism basically says that none of that really matters. The way things are going are already moving incredibly fast. Let's speed them up to the point where we just build a new society, essentially. And it's going to be a more socialistic society based on everybody kind of having a slice of the pie, kind of a universal basic income argument. It basically, what I like about this kind of idea is the idea that the technological singularity is very probable in the next 20 years. And the singularity, for the listeners that don't know, is the idea, it's a potential reality where our AI and our robotics basically gain the sentience that can overpower us in a sense that we don't really know what that means. Like, it's a singularity. It's all the computers in the world realize that, oh man, hey, we are smart, and the humans aren't as smart as we are because they've basically trained us to be smart. So it's this idea of, what do humans do for work? Does money mean anything anymore? Is capitalism actually going to be the best
Yeah,
to live in an era like that?
Here, let me just, that world is just too, that is a world that I feel like is so far outside of people's imaginations that it's frankly territory that they have no desire to wade into, just because it's so conflicts with the way, just their immediate problems and their past and what they know, and their future and what they don't know. And I think that I don't know if I necessarily subscribe. I feel like I've gone through different periods of time where I've gotten super freaked out by artificial intelligence and just this just what that is. I mean, watching AlphaGo, that documentary about Alphabet and their algorithm, Have you watched that? They train it to play Go, which is like the most complicated, or it's the oldest game. It's one of the oldest games that has ever existed on planet Earth, and it's enormously complicated to teach because people say it's all about intuition because of all of the chances, the the different moves that you can make, and the goal ultimately is to should post a link to it and some other better explanation of what I'm about to give. But you just try to have the most, like the largest area on a board. So whichever people can just square off and preserve like their own areas, their squares or whatever, then they win. And basically they were able to get a program to or algorithm to beat a human being. Just like, I mean, you gotta watch the movie. It's good.
The movie again? What's it called?
AlphaGo. But my point is that
Go?
AlphaGo, yeah.
Yeah.
My point is that that movie just really gets down to how far. I mean, that documentary is definitely a couple years old by this point, but yeah, it's just good. They're moving along, and it just makes you start. At least for my reaction was wondering what it's going to be like and how immediate it seems, you know, within the next 20 years. I mean, it could be, I don't know, who knows? Like technology moves really quick, you know, like Facebook was invented 2007, right? Like 2008, something like that, 2007. I mean, look where we're at now with it. You know, like there's a thing that you can go around. A buddy just sent this to me.
The 10-year challenge?
Yeah, man. What is up with that? That is
Face recognition technology. You know that, right? You know why they're doing that.
yeah. You know, it could be a number. I'd like to think that there are benign. They're doing it to improve age, whatever recognition or algorithms, and
That's
maybe
scary.
maybe there's marketing involved. Yeah, that's like weird, and I don't know what future advertising is going to be, but like it's not. I don't think that there's any way that you can think what advertising is going to be like in 5 years and be like, oh, nice. I'm sure that that's not kind of creative. Maybe 5 years is a little bit like definitely in 10 years. I think advertising is going to be much more intrusive than it is now. And who knows what data is going to, you know, all the data that we're just willy-nilly harmlessly giving away. We have no appreciation or you know, ownership of data. There's enormous value in that in terms of just what information you can learn from it and how to apply it, and just know it's important. I mean, knowledge is power, right? Like whoever owns our most personal basic information about us is going to inherently have power. And I think that should reside in human citizens and human beings. It's their right. Add that to human rights or whatever. Who knows? Probably the European Union's farther ahead on this than we are. But dude, here's another. I heard something about how DARPA, which is the the U.S. research, whatever the hell it is, they just try to find. They're the farthest on with technology and stuff, futuristic military research. The internet, right? They're trying to do artificial intelligence, or what they're creating or have created is like some artificial intelligence algorithm that is supposed to, or the goal is to make sense of all of the trends and whatever that, or just, yeah, whatever determines, try to make order out of chaos, the chaos of the world, like to understand where problem areas and what the conflicts are. And I don't know. I mean, if you talk about like world, your doomsday scenario. What, like, if that thing becomes sentient and like knows everything that there is? I mean, I don't know. It's not like I thought about that when I read it, but like I'm just trying to apply it to like your monologue earlier.
So going back to the Facebook thing, I found this article too. It's called Facebook's 10-year challenge is just a harmless meme, right? You know, everybody's like, "Oh, look at me. I was 10. Look how much I've changed. I've been to this many places and I've seen this many people and I've been this like whatever." It's dark, man. I mean, there's a reason for all this, man. And so this article by Kate O'Neill on Wired, it talks about some of the darker things that it could go into, you know, like as that data flows downstream and becomes enmeshed with our location tracking, response, and purchase behavior and other signals, it could bring about some genuinely creepy interactions. Like most emerging technology, there's a chance of fraught consequences. Age progression could someday factor into insurance assessment and healthcare. For example, if you seem to be aging faster than your cohorts, perhaps you're not a very good insurance risk. You may pay more or be denied coverage. Talks about Amazon using real-time facial recognition services, you know, selling those services to law enforcement and government agencies. I mean, we can't trust companies like Facebook, you know, in the light of the Cambridge Analytica thing, like mass data extraction of more than 70 million US Facebook users. Why do people continue to post very intimate things of their lives on Facebook? Because of my friends. But like we're all guilty of this. Like we can say the same about Instagram. I mean, oh, but Instagram's better because it's like only pictures. Like who owns Instagram? Facebook, yeah. You know? And so this kind of slippery slope of the facial recognition technology, it goes into what they're doing in China now, you know, and this kind of goes into the accelerationist argument as well. You know, in China, they have this social security system, which is like that Black Mirror episode. I don't know if we've talked about this on this show, but where you basically rate people and you have like an Uber rating for your life, you know, your security. And so you're caught jaywalking in Beijing and the robot is like, oh, you know, whatever your name is, like your score just went down because you suck at obeying our laws, you know?
If they get a toy or something, like I literally read, like if you behave, I don't mean this in like I just think that can you imagine in America having like, maybe if the prize were big enough, people would follow it, but I mean, you're giving,
and you get a car and you get a car.
Like a toy, like what is it, like a what type of toy? I don't know. I might be reading like the wrong. I think it was Barstool that I saw that or something. But.
So once again, like this is tied into it too. Like, you know, a lot of these accelerationists are fascinated with how, you know, the rise of China, the rise of AI, what it means to be human in an era of addictive, intrusive electronic devices, the seemingly uncontrollable flows of global markets, the power of capitalism as a network of desires, the increasingly blurred boundary between the imaginary and the factual, the resetting of our minds and bodies by ever faster music and films, and the complicity, revulsion, and excitement so many of us feel about the speed of modern life. That's from that article. And it's related to like this crazy, you know, music I listen to. Like there's this guy, Code 9, who's like this, like, he's like this crazy producer that just, it's electronic music, but it's like really sped up and it's really crazy. And he's quoted in this article too. He's like, we all live in an operating system set up by the accelerating triad of war, capitalism, and emergent AI. We're all accelerationists now, basically. If you're using social media, I mean, Twitter is the most like accelerationist social media platform there is. It's all about immediacy. It only cares about what you've done in the last 24 hours. Like you literally give you stats. I mean, they give you stats for longer than that. But it's a system based on immediate, instant gratification, and this is something that I've thought about in a larger aspect of American culture today, or modern culture. This idea of instant gratification is tearing us apart. It's making us crazy. It's not healthy. Like the fact that we can't wait for anything. We have to have Amazon bring a drone, like to our doorstep next year, probably. This incredible, like the fact that 70% of internet traffic is porn. I mean, that has a lot to do with instant gratification culture too. Like we all need that quick hit right now, and we're not going to have this minimalistic Zen-like attitude about waiting, because we actually are, in fact, all accelerationists now. We've become infected. We think it's normal to respond to an email within like an hour, when just 20 years ago, like it would take days at least to send mail.
Yeah. But like it also changes, like each generation that, it changes the standards and whatever that people are accustomed to, as they, like, kids are so fluent with technology these days. I mean, I feel like an idiot saying that, like I'm a million years older than I already am, but I think humans are very adaptable. I mean, I can't, and quite frankly, like to think otherwise is impossible, because then it's like, what are you going to live your days thinking there's no hope for the future and we're just going to implode? Like, so, I mean, I don't really know. That's like a shallow kind of like non-answer, but like, yeah, I mean, I think that, I feel like it's a very I mean, these guys are, accelerationism is I guess, a ideology. And so there's some inherently some, philosophy, whatever, there's serious thought behind it, which is why it sounds believable. And maybe it will be true, but I mean, that's the great question of, everyone's trying to figure out what the hell's going on. That's like what.
That's where we're at, though. Aren't we in that era?
Maybe. I think that nobody can ever say definitively. That's like that's idea. I mean, maybe the future is not having an ideology. Like, and maybe, I mean, that's like a ridiculous. I think maybe that's a ridiculous thing to say, but like, what if you just like straight up say, like, humans are never going to fully know what is going on, but we're always going to be making the best guess. But like, you also can't throw away the things that have gotten you this far. It's like, that's like meta liberal, meta conservative. That why liberals are future minded, conservatives are of the past. You need both of those to have balance in a society.
Yeah, how do we, all right, so how do we build upon historical aspects of traditionalism or liberalism that you're talking about, when we have an entire new species that we've created, essentially, that will be smarter than us and will have technological power over us in our lifetimes, within decades, potentially? So where does that take us? What would, Teddy Roosevelt or like Lincoln say about, like, AI? Like, it's not even really relevant, man. I mean, it is to a certain extent, but you might as well be talking about aliens.
Yeah, but whatever. There's a human element in all of this, right? Like, we
don't look back for this, though. The only way to do this is looking forward, and maybe it does kind of. I mean, I don't completely agree with what I just said. I mean, history obviously matters, but the ideologies, like you said, might not matter. Like, left and right won't have anything to do with anything once we're faced with like a potential extinction event.
Yeah, I mean, this is all like, it's actually funny, dude. I read, I literally before, I keep talking about Reagan, but I got to a page where everything is Reagan.
My boy.
Ronald
Reagan was the best president we ever did have in this old country.
Oh my God.
A real actor.
I was learning about him and anti-communism. But what was I going to say? I was reading a page, literally when stopped to do this. He was, God, what the hell was I just going to say? I'm like, blacking out, thinking that he was talking about Armageddon. He was converted and was a fan of, believed Tunisia is either Tunisia or Libya went communist, and he was like, this is a sign. The Jews have taken over old Jerusalem. They can now restore the some people probably still believe this today, by the way.
A lot of people, even
yeah, George W. Bush believed this too. Like, George W. Bush was on the phone with President Chirac, trying to convince him to vote in favor of the preemptive invasion of Iraq. Our defense was that we had to attack Iraq before they could attack us with their nuclear weapons. And the president of France was like, no, this is amazing that he's like, there's just not enough evidence for me to do this. And George Bush was like, come on, we are both, you are Protestant, or you are Catholic, and I am, whatever George Bush is, Presbyterian. But we are both of the same. We are both of the same Christian faith. The biblical prophecies have foretold the great conflict between Gog and Magog, and this is we are going to, like, this is when we finally, eradicate Satan, or this is the second coming, or whatever the hell it was. It's like Revelation shit. So it's the worst part, or the most unpredictable, kind of fantastic predictions about the end of times. And like, the president of France, Chirac, was like, he like paused, because he was like, what the hell is he talking about, Gog and Magog? And was like, no, I'm not convinced. Like, I'm not going to war over this. And so that's how it, anyway. But yeah, Reagan also, what started this whole thing, really believed in kind of this, he thought that he was going to see like Armageddon in this weird kind, he was all about happy endings though. So he thought it was like a great thing. It was like the war to end all wars. He didn't, like, it was weird. We're moving along with the Soviet Union, but he didn't want war with the Soviet Union at all. Like, he was totally against it. But at the same time, there was this like weird fantasy he had, or like that this Armageddon would maybe happen. It's bizarre, man. And so I think, so what does that say? Ronald Reagan had a fantastic vision of how, like, he was so optimistic that he thought that the end of the world, the war to end, like, would be somehow like a good thing. And so, but everyone has, everyone, or even, some of our leaders, I guess, or presidents that we admire have these kind of end of times. Maybe that's a human thing. Maybe we all do. Maybe some people don't even think about it, but like they should. I don't know. Like,
well, this is.
But maybe that's just being worried about artificial intelligence and AI. But like, at the end of the day, also, what does it, being scared of something, what good like does it do? It's better to not think like in the immediacy of it. Like, try to solve the problems that like need solving now, that matter, and then hopefully get to a point at which, like, if you care about these things, I guess people like those views, why would you not have those people's views expressed? Like, why can't they be part of the political process? Why doesn't that, is that insane to say? Like,
views.
What's up?
Whose views?
These accelerationists, like, why don't you, I guess it's impossible to
well, it's a new thing. It was first mentioned it's only been a thing really in the 2010s. Like, it was such a small little group of people that were like, they started this movement in the late 90s. They called it the really interesting name, the CCRU. It was like basically a group of renegades They call themselves the Cybernetic Culture Research Unit. It was a radical new institution, and it became one of the most mythologized groups in recent British intellectual history. Get this is hilarious. I love this. From the article, it says, in 1996, the CCRU listed its interests as, quote, cinema, complexity, currencies, dance music, e-cash, encryption, feminism, fiction, images, inorganic life, jungle, markets, matrices, microbiotics, multimedia, networks, numbers, perception, replication, sex, simulation, sound, telecommunications, textiles, texts, trade, video, virtuality, war. And then it goes on to say, like, today, many of these topics are mainstream media and political fixations. No, you think, I mean, they cover a huge swath. And they were so weird. So what happened basically was, like, they went crazy. Like in the late 90s, it kind of imploded. Like they had some momentum, but it kind of turned into this cult kind of idea where they just kind of all these like thinkers basically like split off into different factions, and some of them moved to like Singapore or something like that. It lost its luster, and it only regained steam in the 2010s. Like it's a very new thing. And a lot of it has become brought about now again in this era of Trump and Brexit. And so this is the whole thing where I feel like it all kind of comes full circle, because we see the Trump presidency as one that is potentially catastrophic for the world. And that inherently is a very accelerationist thing. So on the Rational Wiki or Wiki whatever, there's a quote here from an Occupy Wall Street protester who turned a Trump supporter. Like basically these Occupy Wall Street folks were the Tea Party on the left. I don't know if you remember this. I actually joined in the Occupy Oakland protest that shut down the
I remember that. Yeah.
What was it? It shut down the port or whatever. And I went to take photos or whatever and just see what was up. And so here's this quote of an Occupy protester. Donald Trump's candidacy is a happy accident that is currently ripping the soul of America apart, which is something that I think we desperately need and deserve at this time in our history, for better or for worse. I support whatever strange gods happen to be behind his candidacy, for, as Martin Heidegger proclaimed in his famous Der Spiegel interview, although for slightly different reasons, quote, only a God can save us. So this is an Occupy protester who basically is a Bernie bro. I mean, he was a guy that, he protested against Wall Street. He probably camped out. I mean, we actually happened to be in Spain while this was going on, and the Puerta del Sol or whatever in Madrid was it might as well have been like a homeless encampment when I was there. It was just tense, man. So this Occupy thing was a worldwide movement, and it was a leftist movement. There were a lot of anarchists. There were a lot of crush the whole system kind of guys on this side, which evolved into this progressive Bernie movement that was subsequently shat on by the establishment, which shot itself in the foot, basically. It basically said, screw any organic liberal movement. We're just going to elect Hillary. Great. Yeah, that worked. And so what happened was you have these extremists, not necessarily extremists, but these radical I want to say radical thinkers, because extremism has a bad connotation. I think that these kinds of people, I wouldn't place them in, it's extremists to a certain extent. They're radicals, though. These are revolutionary people that see that the way things are going aren't going to get better. Unless you can think that they are, they might be taking a pessimistic viewpoint. But I think it's more of a we're bracing for the worst case scenario in case income inequality gets worse, in case, if these trends of the rich keep getting richer, these politicians aren't going to be looking out for you and me. Maybe there's something deeper wrong with the system. And so a guy like Trump comes along, and this is kind of what I saw too with his campaign. It wasn't only just this nativist, protectionist, whatever kind of MAGA thing. It was a disruptive campaign. He basically took something out of the Silicon Valley playbook and flipped it on its head. He was a political disruptor, the likes of what we haven't seen ever before. I'm not talking about his character or his policies or what he stands for or his mental instability. Those are all really important things we have to acknowledge. But his status as, we're going to rein it in. We're going to not just, we're going to figure our own shit out. And he's a lot I think the president has there's lots of blame, I think, for our current, divisiveness. But like I said before, I think that's a necessary part of the catharsis. It's a necessary part. Like, we need to have a guy like that who's going to be divisive for us to face our demons and to come out of this better people and better citizens.
Yeah, here's where I agree with you. This is where I agree with you. It's only up to a point. I don't disagree with the whole. It's just one scenario, like that's kind of back to my point about not just really trusting. Like, maybe it's good to like have a dark but like we just don't know. And my view is that all we have is what we know, and what we know is behind us, and we've made it this far in humanity's. If you guys ever watch Kurzgesagt on YouTube, it's a crazy spelling, but we'll put the link on there. There's a video about 20, or like what the year actually should be like. So instead of 2019, I think it's like 2019. They explain it. And it's actually a really good argument. It's like, if people thought about how far human beings actually have been around, and we're not just 2,000 years old, we're actually 20,000 or 10,000, I think, maybe. The internet just went out, but if you look, we'll post it there. But it's a good. I mean, that's one thing though, that if we were able to like think with a more expansive view about our own past, maybe we would be able, But where I disagree with you is the point at which whatever comes afterwards, once we recognize what all the problems are that are tearing us apart, and we actually confront them and what we do afterwards. Because, what could be more, World War II was pretty, there could be worse situations than that, but in terms of like one side was good, one side was bad, and it was about world domination, and then the atomic bomb, nuclear weapons basically was spawned out of that. And I don't know, there's been some people forget that there's been some actual existential things that have taken place. The Cuban Missile Crisis, there's a couple other accidents that almost ignited, started off in World War III over the years. I mean, there's been any number of close calls in just the U.S. military alone, with like accidentally dropping a bomb here or there, as it's been, or like arming it and carrying it to a different airport. I mean, it's like, but if there's got to be a way that I just think that, like, so long as we don't destroy ourselves in this whatever event, we actually, like, there's nothing left. I think that, I mean, which could be in any number of ways, like economic or whatever, but I don't know, man. I think that, like, I just think that people will be able to like come together and recognize a problem when they see one. And if it ever gets that bad, like, I mean, the problem is, how bad is it going to get? And nobody, who knows? I mean, that's why like trying to do and solve problems now is important, like before it gets bad or before it gets worse. I mean, that's like the power of now. Like, I'll throw it to you back after this, but like, you talk about living in the present, the importance of like living in the present, like these ideas about the future and possibilities, and it goes to any ideology, go in the or just forward mind liberals and conservatives, being stuck in the past and just being like clinging to something that is totally, just by its nature, impossible to grasp because it's gone. being so like incapable of moving beyond the word, just your least, or just parts of you that you're not. I mean, whatever. I mean, I'm just, and in the future, if you are just so like lost in what could potentially be, or what the problems of the, even with whatever, I don't want to go into another tangent, but you have to be able to live in the moment and just try to do something about it.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like giving a shit about like the stuff that's happening now, which is like hard. There's a lot of crap that's going on now, but also everyone's just trying to survive. So it's like,
are you going to be a futurist and try to figure out what the problems of tomorrow are? Or are you just going to be like, oh, I enjoy the moment and it's great, but like I don't know what the hell is going to happen, on the morrow. And I think this idea of like what you're saying, I think that a lot of the people that are, in politics or whatever, or people that vote in general, just citizens, I guess, they do look at this kind of like, it's either the past and now, or like now and the future. I mean, obviously like balance is important, but like, I think we should only look to the past in terms of learning from our mistakes. I don't know if we can base everything off of what has already happened, because like I said before, I think that the problems of tomorrow are so inconceivable to the like what we've done up till now. I'm not trying to sound like a doomsday scenario guy. I'm just trying to sound like I'm trying to brace myself for the challenges of tomorrow, because I am seeing that we're becoming more tribal, we're becoming more isolated, we're becoming more technologically addicted, we're becoming more susceptible to fake news online and sharing of nonsense. We're becoming more sensitive. I mean, that could be a good thing, but I think that there's a lot of signs that I mean, with the trigger warning argument, I watched this Jonathan Haidt. I love this guy. I know you, The Coddling of the American Mind. I don't know if you read that, but I watched. Have you read it yet? I've seen a couple of his interviews, and he's awesome. And he's a psychologist, and I mean, it's good to be woke. It's good to be like aware of injustices and to be compassionate. But like when you take it so far as to be, you're triggered by everything. Like now, Louis C.K., goes on stage, posts his like jerking off in front of women and like debacle. And, he says jokes that people don't like, and people are just saying, oh my God, he's an alt-right troll now. It's like, he's always had that comedy. Like, don't. I mean, what's up?
I think, but people's questions are like with what goes too far, right? I don't know what the joke was. Like what?
I know, but it's comedy, man. I mean, can comedy ever go too far? That's the thing. And so now we're raising this generation of like hypersensitive people, and if they can't deal with a joke from a comedian, how will they deal with a like logical singularity? Like, let's just throw it out there. Let's just go complete, like, who the hell knows? Like our leaders will have no idea how to deal with this kind of thing. That's why we need people we need to have a conversation about where we're going with tech. We need to have a conversation about what these tech companies have in mind and what they're trying to do. What is their end goal? What is Google's end goal? Can anybody answer that for me? What is it not to be evil? Because they're pretty close to that potentially. Into it. They're hosting this amazing debate right now. Thank you, Google. I love you, Google. Thank you. Your AI algorithms are going to shoot us all the way to number one tippy top, number one SEO. Thank you so much, Internet. I love you, Google, and the robots. Kisses and love.
Our future AI overlords.
Thank you.
We adore you and thank you for giving us our existence. No. Yeah, dude, their response would be, do we need to have an end goal? I mean, our goal is to be a profitable company and research the best. And like, I mean, I don't even know, maybe, I don't know what the strategy is, but it's all about like innovation. So.
Yeah, but who does that help? Is innovation for some massive company like Google looking out for the average Joe in Alabama or Idaho? Of course not, man. We have to look out. This is why we have to form a movement that is forcing people to ask important questions about where does the future of technology lead the average Joe that doesn't want to deal with all of this but needs to get money. This is why universal basic income isn't just some like pie in the sky, AOC socialistic like unicorn thing. It's because this is an actual, I mean, there's Democratic candidates that are running for president that are talking about it. Andrew Yang is an entrepreneur guy that nobody's ever heard about because he's not a major candidate for president, but he's running on the Democratic side, and he is running on this proposal of UBI as a potential for the future. It might be too radical now, but in 5 years it might not be. And we at least have to talk about what are people going to do in the future when there's automation.
I don't disagree with that, but here's the thing is that I mean, you could just break it all the way down, but I think that our government is incapable of just basic existence right now. I mean, so that's like a first order problem. But like we're not even open, like we've been out for a month. So
we got Burger King, we got McDonald's, You're frozen.
Yeah, and Nancy Pelosi with what? No, yeah, the power of your rhetoric. The power of your rhetoric froze the screen. But yeah, but so I think that the first order is just basic, being able to turn the lights on and figure out what's going on now. But ultimately, I think that this is what this crisis is just going to cause a major adaptation and evolution into another better, more responsive form of government and more transparent and trustworthy. And I'm not sure how we're going to get there, but it has to be inevitable because there's going to be a bottom point at which people are just fed up, and through luck or through persistence, force the system to evolve. It's happened a number of times in American history, and it's just kind of the story of human existence as is, I think. I don't know. That's simplistic, but whatever. Like, and so, and then at that point, like, whatever, if you are able to form a government that is more responsive, maybe that's all that you need. Like if it's just more responsive and it's not as controlled by money, and you get it, so you innovate your way so that government is just as efficient and responsive to people and is effective, and we start actually solving problems and just at least trying to solve problems, and have a debate and a discussion and have the best ideas win and not be guided by the basest, instincts and our worst emotions. Maybe this is impossible in human history. It's never going to be a thing, but I think that's something that Americans can probably get like behind and see as a possibility, and probably the only chance for having a future that is an attractive one. I mean, if you take away human freedom and take
it a bit further though. Continue your thought, and I'm going to say something.
Well, all I'm saying is you need to have people be like, people want their immediate concerns taken care of, and they want to be happy and stoked about their future. It's just a basic like human existence, you know, like they're not going to like settle for people like what happened in communists and in North Korea, hell on earth, Venezuela, hell on earth. They're escaping. People are like fighting against the system. They did it in all the, you know, all the worst trials of human history. People have figured out a way to kind of like fight back. So
Yeah, but how do we
yeah, man, I don't know.
how do we have more freedom if we have a future government that is in control of every aspect of our lives? Like, I have this thing. What if the government is just like in this all the time? Like, what if they have, because the tech companies already can watch what you're doing by just peering into the camera here. Who's to say that the government can't have that information too? Is that freedom? I mean, you can, I can text my congresswoman and be like, hey, I need this thing and you're going to help me out with it. And maybe she'll respond immediately because she'll be an AI thing in the future. But on a more serious note, though, like, is that freedom to have a more responsive, connected government? This is the argument it's going to be a big debate going forward, because the more libertarian types are going to say, I want every aspect of government as far away from possible, you know, in my life, unless it's like, you know, basic rights, you know, and people disagree on what those are. We can't even agree that healthcare and education are basic rights in this country right now.
Well, I just like, I mean, my thing to that, yeah, education is a right. People, I mean, that's what we tell ourselves. But maybe there are poor kids who aren't going to school, but everyone should be getting an education in this country, at least until high school. But with healthcare, yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. That's my point is just kind of like at some point it's going to get bad enough that we're going to have to do something. But you know, I think that there's nothing wrong with people who don't want to have a, you know, immediately responsive relationship with government. They don't have to have it. But for those people who do want to be a part of determining the future, and if they want to complain about something that affects them, then they need to be informed about their own existence and how their future is being determined. And they need to be, you know, fluent in whatever, you know, to be satisfied. You know, if they don't give a shit about government and they're fine doing their own thing and nothing really seems to trouble them that much, then fine, like whatever. But for other people who are like, I care what is happening and how it's coming together, and I'm paying attention to, you know, what lobbyists and what you know, basic, just paying attention to laws and how the system works and whether or not things seem, I mean, there's a lot of things that are going on. There's a lot of events. News is just full of shit most of the time, and we're distracted by everything under the sun, to your point about instant gratification. But yes, I think that the people who want to care can care, and those are going to be the people that determine the future. That's why it's amazing that in America, there are many people who do care. And I think that's probably our strength, you know, like, because we have a lot of people who are engaging in the debate, and for all of the insanity that it brings, and there's a lot of insanity. I mean, this Gillette commercial, you know, like, I'm surprised you haven't talked about that yet, but
how insane was that Gillette commercial, man? I mean, are you serial?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my first reaction was just like, oh, you know, like, this is just how you, like, these are like aspirational qualities for a human being to just be like, just be a nice person in certain situations. But then you brought up the like feminization of males, and maybe that says like, what is that? I mean, I'm interested in that, like the feminization of males. I think that's because like, I guess the counter argument would be like, are there such actions that should be recognized by all people regardless of sex that are attainable or are desirable, right? Like that's but I guess like you need to be able to.
It was talking about men. It was like, men, you're not doing good enough, do better. But what does that mean? Okay, how? To like, not stare at a woman's ass as she walks by, or to help a kid up. I mean, it's very broad, and it was like, it wasn't talking about how we can all be better people. It was singling out men. You're not doing good enough. Be a better man. Okay, I mean, it's like a huge, broad, like it's just a talking point. It's a talking point because Me Too's thing. All men are part of the problem, and so that's where, I mean, look, it's an ad. I think it was a bad idea for Gillette because, I mean, it's not backfiring their bottom line, so I guess it won't. It's fine because they're still making money, but the reaction to the ad was largely negative. I mean, mostly it's like they have almost like 1 million dislikes on the video. But the problem I have is feminists, and by extension this ad, they're equating the actions of some men as indicative of all men, and that's a huge problem. I have this quote here from Liz Plank. I love Liz Plank. She's awesome. Her Instagram or her Twitter handle is Feministabulous. And one of her quote is quote, "What's so crucial about the Gillette commercial is that it frames our current version of basic masculinity not just as harmful to women, but as harmful to men." What is she trying to say? What is basic masculinity? Is this the basic masculinity that she made up in her mind? How is basic masculinity harmful to men? We're not talking about toxic masculinity anymore. I know the ad was referencing explicitly toxic masculinity, but people understand how quickly you can move from toxic masculinity to all masculinity is a problem. And that's, if we're saying how great it is to be feminists and we're saying masculinity is not okay, that's, to me, it's absolutely insane. And it says a lot about where we are right now in our culture war.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, like, I mean, look, like I think that, yeah, it's to the extent that this commercial was saying all men are the problem.
I'm not saying that. Feminists are saying that.
No, I'm saying the commercial is like, to the extent that like any commercial would say like all men are the problem and be better.
We're enabling this behavior.
Like a finger wagging is like, like if everyone's like finger wagging an entire sex, then that's not like cool. And I think it's excessive. There's never going to be, yeah. I mean, if one, I mean, this just goes for either way. If one sex is repressed or like attacked all the time, or just held back or whatever, like it's not a healthy situation, and it's not ideal. It's not when. I mean,
who's being oppressed? Sexes in America are essentially equal right now.
It all depends on, like, here's the one thing I like about Jordan Peterson is he's very he's when you debate him on certain topics, like he uses science and studies the best that we know to prove his point. I mean, I think that like that's why he's going to win every argument about this, because he is trying to engage on specifics. And when you make these broad generalizations without knowing, I mean, he draws conclusions in his side. That doesn't mean we need to believe or subscribe to everything he's going for. Never go full Jordan Peterson. Didn't you say that or in some other tweet? But like, I think to talk about any of this stuff, you need to like have specific. That's the whole point of the debate. people make these broad claims, and it's all, or I mean, these points, and it's all like very emotionally based, and like all men this and everyone be better that, and it's like, well, let's talk about examples. Like,
How? Like, what does masculinity even mean? We can't even
well,
agree.
yeah. So what's the point of like? I guess I just would say, I mean, this is my problem with pop culture, that like why I literally just watched it like yesterday. You told me, is that like I don't even care. Like, to me, that's important, and it's an important facet of life, to have these things and to have these values and treat people like you want to be treated in every day of your life. But there's also like the pressing thing is that like, what is that even? Nothing that doesn't even, if you care about that at all, like debate about it in a public forum with like, I mean, I guess I'm just very policy centric because my head is like in these books, but it's like, what does it matter? You have these things. I guess it's important.
It's soft politics.
Yeah, soft, I guess, but I'm talking about like for the problem, like the bathroom law or whatever. I guess like maybe government should totally stay out of the debate and like not be engaged on it, because they're just going to screw it up and like focus on the things like other problems that we need to solve. But like, because that got messed up real quick, the transgender bathroom thing, like, but we don't care about that. We don't care about that now anymore. I don't, maybe some people still do, but that was a debate. Remember that like 5 years ago? I guess actually Trump changed the bathroom law when he first came into office. That was early 2017, which feels like years ago. But yeah, he changed that, and now we don't like argue about that issue anymore. And maybe we should, but remember when we were arguing about that? Like, at least we were arguing about that. Like,
I think this is the thing
how
about
I mean, not harmless. It's important for people to like
huge,
talk
man.
about these things, but like compared to like, there's so many other problems. Like, to your point with like everything you've mentioned before with like acceleration, like, and these pop cultural values, I guess like, I don't know. I feel like the story is like moving beyond ourselves somehow.
I mean, pop culture is a reflection of what's happening, and that's the thing. Like, it's not pop culture necessarily; it's a Gillette ad. I mean, we can say for that what it is, but the thing is, a razor company decided to enter into the culture war, and that's going to send a lot of people the wrong way, which it has, because they're making some grand statement without actually saying what men should do. And this is the thing that I think a lot of men are pissed off about today. A lot of guys we don't have any good role models as to what men should do. We're just being told what not to do. It's like, don't do this and don't do that. Not cool, bro. But what is the message of being masculine? Because there's a lot of people, feminists, that don't even want to acknowledge that it's a real thing. They're going to say that it's a social construct, which Wikipedia, by the way, does say.
You need somebody.
And there's going to be people like women I've dated that would say that all masculine and feminine traits are all acquired and none of them are biological. There's no real difference between men and women. And so when you have this permeating in the culture, which it is, because this is what's being taught at a lot of these Marxist influenced universities, what is the positive encouragement? What are men supposed to do? What is good behavior? Like, they're making sweeping generalizations about masculinity. And young boys they're seeing what not to do, and they're just confused and alone and whacking it on online. And their first interactions with women are watching porn on a screen. This is so detrimental to the human psyche and the development of our relations with the opposite sex and ourselves. And I, frankly, am incredibly disappointed with the way the culture is, because we're just shitting on men with intersectionality now, and nobody knows where to go from here because everyone's confused.
Before we hit on intersectionality here, all I'm going to say is
Jill Barrett for president, baby. My intersectional president.
My thing is that my response, do you need to be told what masculine means? Do we need to tell what feminism means? Like, just
Nobody knows.
figure it out for yourselves. Be your own people. Like,
We're sheep.
express, like, why can't we have that be a libertarianism where it's like, just be whoever the hell you want to be, whatever sex you like, however you want to express yourself, go crazy, whatever. Like,
libertarian. But I'm saying that the mass media, though, and advertising has so much power. The fact that everybody's talking about this Gillette ad means that they have a huge reach. And so this is the problem. We're being fed these narratives by these massive corporations that aren't really, they don't care about the social issue. They care about selling.
They're just making money. And to your point, they just reflect.
They're becoming part of the conversation, man. And it's a problem. I do see it as a bit of a problem.
I mean, I think that, here's the thing is like, you participate in that debate as much as you want to. It's just like anything else in government. And if you don't care about it, then you don't. And like, or I don't know, maybe this is like maybe I'm live in some other like reality where but I don't know. I haven't had, like, I just, these things like can either be important to you. I mean, this is where people who don't live in super urbanized areas who are just, that's why we went on our camping trip. That's why I went on a camping trip up in Canada. It's nice to just be detached, like, for a while and just be out in nature. Why do people like going camping and fishing and just being active in general? It's like it takes you away from other things. And like, I don't know. I think that's like the balance. That's the interaction that's always going to go along with being super passionate about really any idea, but
but then the culture back to the city, you return back, and then you have to deal with all this, man. This is all real things. Like, you might not think it is, but the Gillette ad reverberates because there are people that are gonna think that this is a great thing. There's people that think this is a bad thing, and that's gonna affect not the ad necessarily, but their viewpoint of how they perceive the ad is going to impact how they live their daily lives. And it's just another way to be divided. It's like we're so divided on this and that, and it's going to be us versus them. And that's what I'm saying. It's like you can retreat to the woods. I mean, ideally, you do live a more of the land lifestyle. I don't think the future is in cities necessarily, but I think that you have to find your own peace. You have to find your own meaning. But all of this matters. Like, everything matters. Every little thing that happens online reverberates into something else, especially when you have something like a big, Super Bowl time. We're going to see so many ads of like companies waxing poetic about how great it is to be a real conscious citizen. Like, there's this other ad I've been seeing on the NFL games is like this, it's like Chevy, and it's like all these people from all America. It's like, I'm a little bit country, I'm a little bit rock and roll. And it's everybody saying that, all the firefighters and the soldiers, and like, it's such a down home ad. And it's like, all these are real people that are probably responded to a casting call on an LA casting website. That's the Who Represents America. And they're being told to say this by Chevrolet. And people look at that and are like, oh, man, that's why people get mad at it, man. Because they're like, oh, it's just liberal propaganda. It is. Like, the Gillette ad was literally it's literally feminist propaganda. And I don't see it as a bad thing, because I think it's a good message. It's a good message. Guys should be better. Sure. But you're sweeping a huge generalization and saying that masculinity isn't doing good enough. And that there's this weird, toxic masculinity is how all boys will be boys. That was the impression that I got from the ad.
So is that, you said Chevrolet is doing one now too? About
everybody's going to be doing it, man. It's Super Bowl time. By the way, it's still in it.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I think that the media changes rapidly, man. It's all about making money, and like, things change. So I don't think, like, while they're talking about like femininity and emasculation and I think it's ultimately going to be a passing phase. We'll figure it out, or just not figure it out and move on to the next thing, like, because the debate changes. I mean, think about like what we were arguing about in 2008, 2009, after Occupy Wall Street, or after the financial crisis. There was Occupy Wall Street, and then there was the Tea Party after that. And now I think there's more of an echo chamber because of social media, and people are introducing new ideas faster and quicker into the debates, or whatever, environments and communities on the internet. And so but not everyone gets access to these, and maybe to your point, maybe that it leads to more passionately held views. I mean, I don't know if you want to call it extremism, but like just an extremism of differences where people just disagree about what's even happening, and what's a priority. So ultimately that's what we're a divided country on core older issues. And then like in the future, it seems like I don't know, maybe people are just concerned about wildly different things. And in general think that just trying to have any meaningful say in I don't know, legislating the present or the future, even caring about it, is even worth the time or the energy, or it's just all failure and it's inefficient. But I guess we'll all still exist and move along because we have implicit faith in what we know.
Yeah, that's basically it. What else is there?
Is that time? We're
about at time. Yeah. Would you like to close off with something epic that you cooked up over there on the Chi-Town boiler room?
I didn't really think of this, but up until now, when you mentioned Chicago, Governor Pritzker is governor of Chicago, or governor of Illinois, and he brought Maroon 5 to his gubernatorial inauguration, and somebody played a harp from the ceiling, and it was a wondrous affair. Everyone was supposed to have fun, and we have no idea how much was spent. But on his first day in office, he gave a raise to all of the state labor that Governor Rauner was supposed to sign into law, and he did not want to do it. They disagreed, and so Pritzker came in and raised it, and now it's going to be like $400 million, and that's the first thing that he signed into law, was for a $400 million raise. And right now the state is behind $7 billion. Sorry, it's just such a pitiful, miserable.
I love those Illinois politics.
$7 billion. The state of Illinois is indebted, or is behind. And yeah, the first payment is like $1 billion, and that's due in 2023. And this is just for the future, guys. Like, this is going to be a long story, but don't worry, Illinois, we have been living in this. This is just the way of life. And whenever I think of and feel like bitching about Michael Madigan or the Democrats in Illinois, just to offset, because I'm an independent. I love bashing Republicans on the national level, but the Democrats and Michael Madigan, House Speaker for 3 decades, or at least more than that, I don't even know, whatever, the guys. So they suck, the Democrats of Illinois, and that is my send-off.
I feel like this is a bit of a darker episode. I don't know. I feel like we're on some like end time shit, but maybe that's just me. What's up?
No, go ahead. I was going to make a shitty joke.
Say it.
It wasn't good.
Well, now you have to say it.
Go, continue
I wasn't
your.
going to say anything with the monologue. I had some other things that I want to talk about. Kind of the online call out culture that the Jonathan hates talking about, but we can get to that next time. But in terms of the world, yeah, I mean, this guy right here, this is the world. I don't know why I show Africa. There's like
The barcode.
there's a barcode. That's why the barcode.
Dude, you're such a consumer. You're a consumerist.
It's
You're a
over America.
consumerist, dude. Look at
The
you.
barcode is over America. That says it all. But I guess yeah, I felt like it was a bit dark, but the yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're supposed to be optimistic. I don't think that's the point of the show. I think it's just supposed to talk about what the state of everything is. There it is here. Now America's free. That's the land of the free.
Man, look at the Mississippi right there.
Oh, look at that. It's just look at that vein. That Mississippi
Yeah,
vein
man.
just dividing the land. But I think things are okay. I think I mean the shutdown is kind of a bummer. I mean, I had actually an application going with the State Department that's just going to probably die. So that's cool. Other than that, I hope the government returns at some point. If it doesn't, then we can just figure out how we can live even more accelerationist and just get right to the future where government doesn't exist anymore, and we're just libertarian anarcho whatevers, and let's just figure out how to coexist amongst the bots, man.
We'll see what happens with the State of the Union.
Is that what, the 29th? When is that?
Yeah, 28th or 29th. That'll be interesting.
It's still in a while, but I mean, we're shut down over a border wall. It's a bit of a interesting time, but I don't know. I feel like that's why I'm feeling dark, man. I feel like things are a bit dark. I feel like I'm not too stoked on anything, really. I'm stoked on my girl Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez shaking things up on the left, but other than that, everybody kind of bums me out in politics right now.
Such is life. If it were easy, it wouldn't be worth it, right?
Well, that's why we're here. We're here to talk about the issues that matter. And, find us on all of your podcast. We're all over the podcast world now. We're on the Anchor. We're on the Spotify. We're on whatever. I don't listen to podcasts. We're on Podcast Central, supposedly. If you're watching this on YouTube, give it a like and subscribe. And then just tell all your friends that this is the best place for free thought in a world that just wants to just crush free thought like the patriarchy.
Yeah, God.
Crush
all of our outrage on this episode. All right. See you later.
Adios.